The moment my brother scoffed at me during that fateful dinner, I couldn't help but chuckle. Then I made a decision that changed everything. My childhood, the one I was meant to cherish, ended abruptly when I was 13. After our parents passed, I took on the responsibility of raising my younger brother, Nathan, and keeping the promise I made to our little sister, Sarah, before she slipped away. By day, I scrubbed floors in towering office complexes, the sharp scent of cleaning chemicals clinging to me like a second skin. At twilight, I labored at construction sites, my body straining under the weight of plasterboards and concrete until every muscle screamed. My nights were spent as a night watchman guarding empty buildings, the silence broken only by the rustle of pages as I studied. I devoured books on business, economics, and investment strategies. For years, I survived on 3 hours of sleep, my hands roughened by calluses, marked by cuts and blisters. Every penny I earned, every cent not spent on basic necessities, went to Nathan. He attended elite private schools while I subsisted on instant noodles over a cramped sink. He played varsity sports. When he turned 16, I bought him a sleek, brand-new luxury sedan, not the rusty clunker I drove. I wanted him to feel confident, not ashamed. I funded his education at a prestigious business university, the fees astronomical. I picked up extra shifts and sold whatever possessions we had left from our parents' estate. He never asked where the money came from, he just took it. When he graduated, I covered the full deposit for his upscale apartment in a gleaming skyscraper. And when he met Rachel, the daughter of a wealthy financier, I paid for their extravagant $300,000 wedding. I stood at the back of the venue in a rented, ill-fitting suit, watching my brother step into a life I'd built for him, a life I could never claim. He was living the dream I'd sacrificed everything for, but there was something no one knew. For 15 years, I'd kept a secret. When Nathan started college, I began investing the small savings I'd scraped together, a few $1,000s from my grueling jobs. I applied the knowledge I'd gained during those solitary nights patrolling empty warehouses. My initial investments were modest and risky, but my calculated strategies paid off. Then they paid off again. I had a knack for seeing trends others overlooked. I reinvested every dollar. While I mopped floors by day, my hidden portfolio grew, first to $10,000, then $100,000, then $1 million. It became a quiet but powerful force behind my life. I started acquiring businesses, a small catering service, a cleaning company, then larger ventures like property holdings and tech startups. 15 years ago, I bought The Pinnacle, the parent company that owned the upscale restaurant where that fateful dinner would take place, along with a collection of other luxury hospitality venues. My empire was worth over $80 million by the night of that dinner. Yet I never changed my lifestyle. I deliberately kept my janitorial job, or at least the appearance of it. I drove old cars, wore thrift store clothes, and lived in the same small, budget apartment. It was an experiment, a test to see who would value me, Ethan Carter, the person, despite believing I had nothing. Who would show kindness to a cleaner? Who would see beyond the grime on my hands? The answer was almost nobody, especially not Nathan or Rachel. As Nathan climbed the corporate ranks I'd quietly paved through strategic anonymous investments in his firm, he and Rachel slowly pushed me out of their lives. Thanksgiving invitations stopped. They were always traveling. Christmas was reduced to a gift card tucked inside a generic card. When Nathan's banking colleagues were around, they'd make excuses. "My brother's very private," they'd say. I was their shameful secret. The Pinnacle's manager, Thomas, was one of the few who knew the truth. I'd met him years ago when he was a struggling security guard at another building I patrolled. He was jobless, his wife was sick, and he was living out of his car. I shared my meal with him and gave him a few $100s to get by. Later, when I had the means, I hired him. His loyalty was to me, Ethan Carter, the man who shared his food, not the tycoon who signed his checks. He was the one person I could truly rely on. The breaking point came 3 months before that disastrous dinner. The cleaning company I worked for was bought out, and my job was eliminated. For the first time in decades, I was officially unemployed. I decided to conduct one final test. I called Nathan, my voice heavy with defeat, and told him I'd lost my job and was short on rent. I asked to borrow a few $100s. The silence on the other end was icy. "Ethan," he said, his tone sharp with irritation, "we can't help. Things are tight right now." Tight. He was earning $900,000 a year. "Maybe look into some public aid programs," he added, his voice dripping with contempt. That night, Nathan and Rachel sent me a gift, a sleek, expensive-looking desk clock. The note read, "Thinking of you during this tough time. Hope this adds some cheer to your place." It was an odd, detached gift. I thanked them, but suspicion gnawed at me. On a hunch, I had it examined. Hidden inside the clock was a sophisticated voice-activated recorder. They weren't just thinking of me, they were spying on me. I placed the clock on my shelf and let it record. I spoke aloud, talking about my struggles, my despair, my sense of being lost. I was performing for an audience of 2. A week later, Nathan called to invite me to the Pinnacle. "We're celebrating my promotion, Ethan," he said, his voice smooth with feigned warmth. "We want you there. Let's put the past behind us." I knew it was a ruse, a trap. But I agreed it was time to end the masquerade. In my small apartment, I stared at a photo of Sarah by my bedside. Her smile was pure, untouched by the cruelty I'd uncovered. "Almost there, little sister," I whispered. "I'm about to keep my promise, and they'll never forget this night." The weeks before the dinner felt like the calm before a storm. On the surface, everything was normal. Beneath, the tension was building, and I held the reins. After accepting Nathan's invitation, I made a call from my real desk. Not the worn kitchen table in my apartment, but the one in my private downtown office, which Nathan didn't know existed. I contacted Jessica, my PR manager, sharp and fiercely loyal. "Jessica," I said, my voice low, "I'm going to a dinner at the Pinnacle in 3 weeks, my brother's event. Prepare a full media package to deploy on my signal. Audio, financial records, the whole story. I want it to go viral." There was a pause. "Ethan, what's happening?" she asked, concern in her voice. "The experiment's over," I said. "It's time to reveal the results." She didn't need more explanation. "It's done," she replied. Next, I worked with the desk clock, that cold, costly gift from Nathan and Rachel. I'd been careful, speaking openly about my financial woes, loneliness, and declining health, crafting the image of a man on the edge. I wanted to see how far they'd go. The clock was delivered, and in my office I listened to its recordings of their opulent home. The audio was crystal clear. I heard them discuss me. "He's becoming a problem," Nathan said, irritation in his tone. "He asked for money again. What if my colleagues see him? What if he shows up at work?" Then Rachel, her voice cold. "We need to fix this, Nathan, permanently. My father's been asking questions. He says a man's judged by his family. We can't have a broke cleaner dragging us down." My jaw tightened. I kept listening. "I've been researching places," Rachel said. "State facilities, there's one upstate. It's decent enough. If we can have him declared mentally unfit, we can gain control of his assets. We can sell his rundown apartment and use the funds for his care. It's practically a kindness. He's obviously unstable." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just neglect or embarrassment. It was a calculated scheme. They planned to have me committed, declared insane, and take the one thing I owned outright, my modest apartment, to safeguard their social standing. They weren't just cutting me out. They meant to lock me away. That was the moment any lingering familial bond died. It wasn't about a fractured relationship anymore. It was about survival. It was about justice. I saved the audio and sent it to Jessica with one note. "Add this to the package. Call it the compassion plot." Days later, I ran one last test. I called Nathan again. "Nathan," I said, my voice trembling, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm in a bad spot. The unemployment hasn't come through. I might lose my place." His sigh was heavy, performative. "Ethan, I told you we can't help. Rachel and I have obligations." "I know," I said. I feel like I'm losing my grip sometimes." I was feeding them the narrative they wanted. "You need help, Ethan," he said, his tone grave but predatory. "Maybe see a professional. There are state programs for people like you." That's what they called it, help. "Okay, Nathan," I said softly. "I'll see you at dinner." "Yes," he replied, his voice brightening. "It'll be great, a real celebration." I hung up, the anger gone, replaced by something cold and resolute. The plan was set. I didn't fuss over what to wear for the dinner. Instead, I made 2 final calls. First, to Thomas at the Pinnacle. "Tonight's the night," I told him. "I'll arrive at 7, treat me like a stranger as always until I give the signal." "What's the signal?" he asked. "You'll know it," I said. "And prepare my private dining suite, the one with conference capabilities. Also, tip off a few paparazzi you know. Tell them a major scandal involving a banking executive is about to break at the restaurant. Don't mention me." "With pleasure, Mr. Carter," he replied, satisfaction in his tone. The second call was to Mr. Reynolds, the CEO of the investment group that owned Nathan's bank. I'd kept him on when I acquired the company. He was principled and knew who I was. "Martin," I said, I need a favor. Be at the Pinnacle tonight at 7:30. Have dinner at the bar. I'll send you a text with instructions to approach my brother's table and say exactly what I write. Can you do that? Is everything okay, Ethan? He asked. It's about to be, I replied. Just be there. He agreed, no further questions. The stage was ready. I visited my parents' and Sarah's graves, the wind biting through my thin jacket. I wasn't the scared 13-year-old anymore, nor the broken man who watched his sister fade. I'd built a fortress of wealth and influence, and my brother, the one I'd done it all for, was trying to tear me down. He thought I was a burden. He was about to learn I was the power behind his world. Tonight, I said to Sarah's gravestone, this is for you. The drive to the Pinnacle was serene. City lights flickered past my old truck's windows, its engine humming a familiar tune. For most, a night like this would spark anxiety. For me, it was clarity, the end of living a double life. I pulled up to the valet, who eyed my truck with disdain, assuming I was a delivery driver. I have a reservation, I said quietly, handing over the keys. Under Carter, he smirked. Sure. Leave it there. Inside, the restaurant's opulence drowned out the city's noise. Thomas stood at the host's stand, his professional demeanor flawless. He gave me a subtle nod, then looked away, playing his part perfectly. My eyes found Nathan's group, loud, self-assured, the center of their own universe. Nathan was mid-story, gesturing grandly. Rachel laughed, her jewelry sparkling under the lights. They were the picture of success. I crossed the room, feeling every stare. My suit was cheap, my shoes scuffed, my hair unstyled. I was an anomaly in their polished world, judged silently. He doesn't belong here. Nathan's smile wavered as he saw me, a flash of irritation quickly masked by a smug grin. He was ready to humiliate me in front of his elite circle. I stood at their table, waiting. Nathan let the silence stretch, relishing my discomfort, letting his colleagues and clients gawk at his pathetic brother. Then Rachel struck, her words sharp. Maybe a fast food joint would suit someone like you better. The silence that followed was thick, laced with amusement and second-hand embarrassment. I saw pity in one guest's eyes, cruelty in another's smirk. Nathan looked victorious, thinking he'd won, that he'd cemented his place by sacrificing me. I thought of Sarah, her hand in mine, the hospital's sterile despair. I'd built an empire to escape that feeling of worthlessness, yet here was my brother serving it to me publicly. The pain was sharp, a blade in my chest. For a moment, the broken boy in me wanted to scream, to flee. Then I remembered. They don't know who I am. I bought this place 15 years ago, I said calmly. It's been one of my steadiest investments. A woman at the table gasped. Rachel shook her head as if denying reality. No, she whispered. You're a janitor. I was, I said gently. It was honest work. It paid for things like Nathan's tuition, his car, your penthouse deposit, and that $300,000 wedding. I counted each on my fingers. Nathan looked ill, his face pale, eyes searching for an escape. But that's not all, I continued. I believe in diversification. Hospitality's nice, but real estate's reliable. I own your building, all 50 floors. You're my tenant, Nathan. My phone buzzed, Jessica's signal that the media package was live. I texted Mr. Reynolds at the bar, walk over. Say, Nathan, we need to talk. Mr. Carter shared disturbing evidence of your plan to seize his assets. Clear your desk, you're done. And finance, I said, setting my phone down, can be lucrative if you control the game, like owning the investment group behind the bank where a certain vice president thinks he's untouchable. Right on cue, Mr. Reynolds approached, his presence commanding. Nathan, he said, we need to talk. Mr. Carter shared disturbing evidence of your plan to seize his assets. Clear your desk, you're done. Nathan's mouth opened and closed, stunned. Phones around the restaurant lit up as Jessica's story hit the news. A man's eyes widened at his screen. A woman gasped, showing her husband. The headline was likely brutal. Bank VP humiliates secret tycoon brother, plots to have him committed. I pulled a small speaker from my pocket and connected it to my phone. Rachel, I said, my voice steady, when you spoke about state facilities, about having me declared unfit, you called it a kindness. I was touched by your concern. I hit play. Rachel's voice filled the silent restaurant, clear as day. We need to fix this, Nathan, permanently. If we can have him declared mentally unfit, we can sell his pathetic apartment. It's practically a kindness. Rachel gasped, recoiling. Nathan stared at the speaker, defeated. Then the doors burst open, paparazzi flooding in, their cameras capturing the disgraced couple and the unassuming man who'd unraveled them. I looked at Thomas. Please escort my former tenants out and send a cleaning crew to their penthouse. I'm renovating. To Mr. Reynolds. Martin, thank you, he nodded. The board will be informed tomorrow. Clean break. I stood in the chaos I'd created, reporters shouting, diners staring, Nathan and Rachel's world collapsing. I felt calm. I'd kept my promise to Sarah. I walked to my private dining suite, leaving their ruined lives behind. The aftermath was explosive, a global media frenzy. Jessica had outdone herself. The truth was out, and I was finally free.